In 1999, Private Residence Resorts was formed to build a fractional ownership resort in Sun Valley, Idaho, and the owner of the company hired PCS to initially help him put together a sales office with all the IT infrastructure and find some software to be able to handle all of their needs in terms of initially starting to make sales before resort was even built. And then shortly afterwards, when they were building the resort, it became quickly apparent that they needed some software to run the entire operation, meaning they needed to keep track of property, do property management, do housekeeping, do maintenance, keep track of many other things, including on-site storage, handle all the money transactions, basically anything that any kind of resort company would run, except this particular company was a little bit different because they needed the reservation piece of it to be somewhat unique at the time. They built the program based on the fact that the usage needed to be fair. And to be able to do so, they put together a special priority, rotating priority preference list, if you will, or a rotating preference list, however you want to call it. And that list was used, so when somebody makes a reservation, the next year they'll move up on that list, depending where they were before. Now they're going to be one notch higher. And then, of course, at some point they will come to a position where they can pretty much book any date they want. Of course, a lot of people want to book Christmas, so this was mostly set up because of that. Because typically everybody wants to go on Christmas, but now there's not enough residences for everybody to go. So this way, using this rotating priority preference list, after so many years, it becomes a fair usage situation, and people will be able to use it, be guaranteed basically their spot to make a reservation when they want to. So because of this reservation, automated reservation process, which is, it's a lot more involved than that, but that's the basic description of it. And everything else, we could not locate software that would do exactly what the company needed. So we decided to build our own. And so we PCS built, designed and built the entire system using Microsoft Office components at the time. This is a little bit before the web-based systems became as prominent as they are today. And they've been using the system at that resort, and then they opened another resort called Hearthstone in McCall, Idaho, and used the system, kind of offshoot of the system. It was modified quite heavily for their use because they also have pet residences and some other differences between the two properties. And so both of these resorts have been running for close to 15 years now. One of them has been 15 years. The other one, I think, is about 13 years. And now there's discussions about moving into a web-based and redoing the whole thing because Office is getting old and compatibility is suffering and things are kind of moving forward. Unfortunately, Microsoft Office products are not compatible with the version that Force was written in. And Force, by the way, stands for Fractional Ownership and Reservation System. So I'll just go through a couple of slides here and show you exactly what's in the system. Keep in mind this was written back in 2000, so it's a little bit on the old side. Okay, so let's see here. So basically, the objective was to come up with something that's flexible, fractional specific, customizable, using industry standard tools at the time. Now they're not industry standard anymore, but at the time they were. And trying to make it so it's got a bunch of capabilities and this kind of, these bullet list options here show you exactly what the concept was initially when we were designing it. Main components of the system were broken down to these 6 areas. Basically, owners to track everything dealing with people who are coming and staying and renting. And then you have reservations dealing with all of their details of all their stays. And then folios, all the financial transactions. And also assessments. They also have assessments. And then residences dealing with housekeeping and status of residences and various things dealing with residences. Spa, because the resort has spa on premises, so spa was part of the mix with appointments and services and therapists and tracking all that reporting. And then surveys is something a little unique because this system was land-based, but we added the surveys component later so people could indicate how much they like, what they didn't like. And so we set it up to be web-based surveys, and PCS wrote a special interface to tie it. So you have a land-based system talking to a web-based system. So people essentially get emails with links to an online form. They fill it out, and then the information is automagically, as I like to call it, gets transferred into the actual main database. In this particular case, happens to be Microsoft Access. Works rather well. So interface was usual type Microsoft Office interface. You had buttons, you had menus, and so you just quickly jump through these things here. Some of the data entry screens look like this, and there's different colors used for various identification of what kind of person it is, and definitely additional capabilities were built in. It's just too much to go into. Reservations had this automated process, as I mentioned, rotating priority system. We had multiple kinds of availability depending on the need. We had ability for people to track airport pickups and notifications for reservations for restaurants, preferences, what people like, what people don't like, wait lists. So if people can't stay when they like to stay, they can be on a wait list, and the system will tell them when they can. And there's also owner-specific access online where they can look at the availability and look at their own reservation information. So there's the reservation portion, and there's a lot of stuff dealing with dates. So you can see the calendar up there. People select the date range or just an individual date, and then they click on one of the options below and they get it. Residences, as I mentioned, all the different housekeeping things, amenities, work history, ability to take residences out of order in an automated fashion, and then they get put back in. Folios, typical charges payments. You can have as many charges as you want per person, per stay actually, and each charge can have anywhere as many payments as needed. There's an easy way to apply payments. Everybody, when they leave, have a checkout report. So the usual hotel type system you would expect, but it had some very unique capabilities built into it as well that you usually wouldn't find anywhere else. Like one of the things we did initially was, back in those days, people actually charged for long distance phone calls. And so we had this Panasonic system, and it was feeding just the raw data out of serial port. And that raw data was used for capturing the long distance telephone calls, and then was converted into who did it, when they did it, and then charges were generated automatically. So all of this was done in an automated, completely automated fashion through Force. So we talked about surveys. You have basically PCS built a land-to-web interface, allowing the flowing of information in both ways. Then there's tabulation. Reports are being sent, excuse me, sent to the management every month, and the reports look like this. So they have all these categories. There's ratings, and also there's free-form text. And so management gives this one sheet of paper that tells them exactly what's going on for a selected period of time. And the new system we're talking about doing is called eForce, which is the enhanced electronic version, web-based basically version of the system, which is going to be completely revamped, completely redone. It'll be significantly improved in many ways. We've certainly learned a lot of stuff in the last 15 years running it, supporting it. And so the design of the new system, which is currently being done, is going to be quite a bit different than the original, but all the core functionality and components that are needed to be used on a daily basis, the resorts would still be in there. It's just going to be completely web-based. It's going to be much better in many respects, and far superior to what we had before. So that's kind of a quick overview of involvement with the private residence resorts. PCS was supporting the company from its inception. and the system since the year 2000 through today, and pretty much acted as the IT department for private residence resorts, including their web initiatives, social media initiatives, including pretty much anything IT related that private residence resorts needed to implement or put together was done through productive computer systems.